I built my guardians a dream studio so they could finally live their second act. They rented it to strangers, moved into my penthouse without asking, then cried for help when the renters trashed it. I told my guardians, not my problem. I'll never forget the look on their faces when they saw it. The car ride out to Hillsborough had been full of nerves. I kept glancing at the rearview mirror like I expected doubt to appear there. But by the time we reached the old farmhouse tucked between maple trees and wildflower fields, my nerves had turned to something else. Pride. A quiet, growing kind of pride. My name is Ryan. I'm 31 years old. I live mostly in New York now, but this story starts just outside a little town in Oregon, where everything changed. Okay, open your eyes, I said, standing between them and the path to the converted barn. June and Caleb, my guardians, my old music teachers, my everything, exchanged confused glances. Ryan, what is this? June asked, blinking against the morning sun. Just look. I stepped aside and let them take it in. The big red barn, now painted soft gray with white trim, stood proud against the green hills. The new roof gleamed. The windows, huge, light-flooded, had been custom installed. Inside, hardwood floors, climate control, skylights, and enough studio equipment to make a small art college jealous. Caleb's hand dropped to his chest. June whispered something I couldn't hear. You bought this? Caleb said, eyes wide. No, I said. I built it. For you. They stepped forward like the whole place might disappear. Caleb ran a hand along the edge of the porch rail. June stared at the custom sign I had made, Studio Orem. Her maiden name. Why? She asked softly. That's when I felt it, the heat behind my eyes. I hadn't planned on getting emotional, but it was too much. All the memories, all the years. Because it's yours, I said. Because you gave up everything so I could chase music. Because you painted while working double shifts, and Caleb turned down tenure to drive me to auditions. Because this was your dream before it was ever mine. They didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me with that mix of love and disbelief only they ever managed. I thought maybe it was time someone gave you something back. June broke first, walking up and hugging me so tightly I could hardly breathe. Caleb followed, his arms folding around both of us. It wasn't dramatic. Just quiet, shaking, real. Inside the studio, they walked like people entering a cathedral. Caleb stopped at the easel I'd set up near the bay window and touched the brush laid out neatly beside it. June found the cabinet of oil paints and glass palettes. I'd even stocked it with her favorite brand, the expensive kind she never bought for herself. Caleb turned to me. You did all this? Every inch. We sat outside afterward, watching the wind move through the trees. They asked if I'd stay the night, maybe even the week. Said it would take a while to believe it was really theirs. I just smiled. This is your second act, I told them. No more sacrifice. No more waiting. You get to make things now. And for the first time in a long time, they believed me. 3 months. That's how long I was gone. A residency in Salzburg, a small orchestra house tucked into a mountain town, and a chance to finally work with the conductor I'd studied since college. I came back with new compositions, a sunburn I didn't expect, and a craving for the smell of coffee from my own kitchen. I didn't tell June and Caleb I was flying in early. I wanted to surprise them. I had this dumb, idealized version of the reunion in my head, me showing up with chocolates from Vienna, all of us sitting around the table again, laughing about how the sheep had escaped the neighbor's fence or how the garden overgrew while they were busy painting. I imagined them sun-kissed, a little paint-stained, talking about the pieces they were working on. Instead, I walked into my penthouse and found Caleb's shoes by the door. I stood frozen, my suitcase still in hand. June's scarf, the one she wore every fall, burgundy with stitched leaves, was hanging on the coat rack. I hadn't even made it past the foyer when I heard the coffee machine beep. My coffee machine. I walked in slowly. Caleb was sitting on my couch, legs stretched out like he owned the place. The TV was on, the volume low. June stepped out from the hallway, drying her hands with my towel. She saw me and didn't even flinch. Ryan, she said brightly, as if I'd come back from the store instead of another continent. You're back early. Caleb muted the TV, turned to me. Didn't know you were flying in today. I blinked. Yeah, I wanted to surprise you. June smiled like that explained everything. Well, surprise. I dropped my bag by the door. What are you doing here? June and Caleb exchanged a glance that set off every alarm in my chest. June walked into the kitchen, poured herself some coffee. She didn't ask if I wanted any. Well, Caleb said, rubbing his knee, since you were overseas, and the studio was a bit remote, we figured it made more sense to be here. You know, keep an eye on things. I frowned. The studio? June waved a hand. We rented it out. I stared. You what? It wasn't being used, Caleb said, as if that cleared anything up. We met this nice couple, tech people, remote jobs. They needed space, and it seemed silly for it to just sit empty. You rented out the home I gave you. June's voice tightened, like she was already tired of the conversation. It's just practical, Ryan. That place is huge. We didn't need that much room. And the city's easier. Everything's walkable. We've been enjoying the penthouse. You mean my penthouse? Caleb's mouth twitched, like I was being unreasonable. It was just sitting there. No, it wasn't. It was mine. It still is. June set her cup down. Ryan, don't be dramatic. It's not like we threw out your things. We kept your bedroom exactly how you left it. That's when it hit me. They didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. They'd moved in like they had every right to. Like the gift I gave them was just a stepping stone to something more convenient. I stood there, the whole room suddenly smaller than it had been. I need some air, I said. Caleb just shrugged and turned the TV back on. 2 days later, I drove back out to Hillsborough. I didn't call ahead. I didn't even tell my manager I was skipping meetings. I just got in the car and went, trying to hold on to the small, stupid hope that maybe there had been a misunderstanding. Maybe they hadn't really moved out. Maybe I'd find a note on the table saying it was temporary. Maybe the studio was still ours. But when I turned down the gravel drive, there was a new Prius parked where June used to keep her old wagon. A smart little drone was hovering lazily just above the porch, doing a perimeter check. A dog barked from somewhere behind the barn, a husky, I think, definitely not theirs. The front door was wide open, music drifting out. Something electronic. Something that didn't belong. I stood on the steps for a second before knocking on the open frame. A girl, probably late 20s, poked her head around the door. She wore bike shorts and a hoodie, holding a smoothie in one hand and a yoga mat under her arm. Oh, hey, you must be the plumber. I blinked. No. Sorry. I'm in. A second person appeared behind her, a guy with shaggy blonde hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He was barefoot. Babe, he's not the plumber. He's the music guy. Ryan, right? I nodded slowly. My stomach tightened. Oh my God, this place is amazing, the girl gushed. Seriously, your grandparents were, like, angels. Total angels. I can't believe the price we got. They're not my grandparents, I muttered, but neither of them heard. The guy stepped aside and waved me in like it was his. Come in. We made some minor tweaks, but hopefully that's cool. Open concept, you know. I walked in and stopped. The studio was still beautiful, that hadn't changed. But it wasn't mine anymore. Not really. The walls had been painted a soft matte blue. The old easel was gone. The work tables had been replaced with a sprawling standing desk and dual monitors. The east wall, June's favorite wall for natural light, had a treadmill desk now. A freaking treadmill desk. The girl noticed me staring and grinned. We added soundproofing upstairs and turned the loft into a podcast room. You're seriously a genius for designing this place. I didn't respond. I was too busy trying to keep my face still. The guy laughed. They told us you were a composer. Said you were some big deal orchestra guy in Europe. You should totally record something in the podcast room sometime. It's got great acoustics now. Did they say why they left? I asked quietly. Oh, yeah, the girl said. They just said it was too quiet out here. And they got a better setup in the city, anyway. Said the studio was a bit inconvenient for their lifestyle. But they were so nice about it. I nodded, numb. Yeah, I said. They usually are. As I stepped back outside, the dog barked again. I couldn't see it, but I imagined it tied to a new leash post, right where June once planted sunflowers. I didn't knock when I got back to the penthouse. I used my key. I wasn't going to play guest in my own home. The lock clicked open, and the smell of incense and red wine hit me before I even stepped inside. My couch had been moved. The artwork I'd collected from my travels had been replaced with abstract canvases, June's latest series, no doubt. Caleb's jazz records were spread out across the coffee table like decoration. They looked up from the kitchen counter like I'd barged in on a private dinner. Ryan, Caleb said, his voice flat. You should text first. I live here, I replied, walking in. June set down her wine glass. Is everything okay? I took a deep breath, set my backpack down by the door. I went to the studio. Caleb turned away, muttering something under his breath. I met them, I continued. The couple renting it. You handed the place over like it was an Airbnb. Like it was nothing. June's expression flickered, not guilt. Just annoyance. We told you. It didn't make sense for us to stay out there. No, you didn't tell me, I said. You made a decision and hoped I'd never find out. Caleb crossed his arms. It was our home. You gave it to us. I gave you a gift, Caleb, I snapped. A dream. A place to paint. To retire. You turned around and sublet it like it was a spare room. And then you moved in here without asking. We didn't think you'd care, June said. You're never here. You're always traveling or composing or recording somewhere. The place was just sitting empty. You have your place. You had everything. Caleb scoffed. It's not like we sold it. We just made it work for us. You rented out the one thing I gave you with no strings. And then came back and treated this like a backup plan. Okay, June said, stepping forward. So what do you want us to do, Ryan? Move back into a place that's too far from the gallery, too hard to maintain? Be isolated? For what, to honor your ego? No, I said. I want you to move back or pay rent. The room froze. You can't be serious, Caleb said. Completely. June's face hardened. After everything we did for you. After the lessons, the late-night rehearsals, the years of pushing you forward, this is how you thank us. I felt it rise in my throat, the guilt, the reflex to apologize, to fold. But I didn't. Not this time. You made sacrifices, I said quietly. And I've spent years trying to repay you for them. But that doesn't mean you get to take whatever you want, whenever you want. Caleb laughed bitterly. You really think this is fair? After all we gave up? June's eyes glistened. We raised you. You guided me, I corrected. You helped me when no one else would. But now? You're taking advantage. June's voice cracked. You wouldn't be here without us. And you wouldn't be here without me, I said, gesturing around the penthouse. So choose. Move back into the home I gave you, or stay here and pay rent like everyone else. For the first time in a long time, I saw something unfamiliar in their eyes. Not anger. Not shame. Just surprise. Like they'd forgotten I could even say no. I knew something was off the second I walked into the cafe. It was one of those old, wood-paneled places in the West Village, the kind with antique chandeliers and creaky floors that tried to pretend time hadn't touched it. Caleb had asked me to meet for coffee, just to talk, calmly, and I said yes, still holding out some small hope that he and June might be ready to admit they'd crossed a line. But when I saw Arthur Benton sitting at the corner table, sipping tea and leafing through a weathered script, I knew this wasn't a casual conversation. Arthur was a playwright. Old school, revered in the arts community, and deeply entwined in our lives growing up. He had mentored Caleb in college and practically served as our unofficial family historian. Revered, charming, opinionated, and deeply traditional. This wasn't coffee. It was a setup. Ryan, he said warmly, rising to greet me. You look thin. Arthur, I replied, shaking his hand. Didn't know you'd be joining us. Caleb smiled faintly. We figured it would help to have someone objective. I sat down, heart already racing. Arthur sipped his tea. I hear there's been some tension. You could say that. Well, Arthur began, setting his cup down gently. I've known your guardians for nearly 4 decades. And I think it's fair to say they've devoted themselves to you. Heart, soul, time, money, you name it. I didn't say anything. Just waited. Arthur continued, but families aren't business contracts. They're not balanced ledgers. You don't repay parents. You honor them, support them, especially when they grow older. So I owe them loyalty, I said slowly, no matter what they do. They raised you, son, Arthur said. They gave up everything for your dreams. And now, you're drawing lines like a landlord. I sat back, my jaw tight. Do you know why I built that studio? Arthur nodded. Of course. No. I mean, really. I leaned forward. Because I spent 10 years watching June sketch in the corners of music halls while Caleb sold his cello to cover competition fees. I saw them push me forward while slowly erasing themselves. And when I could finally give something back, I did. Freely. No conditions. I looked between them, and they turned around and rented it out for cash. Then moved into my home like it was nothing. Arthur blinked. They told me it was temporary. It wasn't, I said. They never planned to return. They turned a gift into a rental property and walked away. Caleb shifted uncomfortably. June said nothing. Arthur was quiet. Then he looked at them. Is that true? June met his eyes for a long moment. Then she looked down at her hands. Caleb opened his mouth, closed it again. Arthur sat back, the weight of it all sinking in. Why didn't you tell me that? No one answered. He turned to me, voice softer now. I didn't know the full story, Ryan. I'm sorry. I stood. You don't need to apologize. I just needed someone else to see it. Caleb stood too. So what now? You cut us out of your life. I looked at him. At June. Then at Arthur. No, I said. But I'm done pretending this is still what it used to be. I left them at the table, the tea cooling slowly between them. And for the first time, I walked away without looking back. It was almost midnight when the call came. I was sitting at my piano, hands hovering over the keys, trying to find the shape of a new piece that kept slipping away from me. The ringtone echoed off the wood floors, sharp and grating. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something told me to pick up. Ryan, June's voice burst through, frantic. Something's happened. Please, we need you. I sat up straighter. What is it? It's the studio, she sobbed. The tenants, they trashed it. Vandalized everything. Oh God, the damage. I rubbed my forehead. How bad? Thousands of dollars. Maybe more. They broke the skylights. They tore up the hardwood floors. The insurance won't cover it all. Caleb didn't update the policy like he was supposed to. She kept talking, but I only half heard her. Words like police report and structural damage floated past me. Then Caleb got on the line, his voice tight. We're looking at around $30,000 to get it back to livable condition. Maybe more. I leaned back in my chair. So what exactly do you want from me? Silence. Then June said it, So soft I almost missed it. Can you help us cover it? I stared at the piano keys. My reflection was faint in the glossy black surface. I thought about the studio the way it had been, brand new floors, hand-built cabinetry, natural light spilling across an empty canvas. And now? Gone. All of it. Because they didn't value it enough to keep it. I exhaled slowly. You want me to pay for the damages caused by the people you chose to rent my gift to? Without telling me. Without permission. It's not like that, Caleb started. It's exactly like that. June sniffled. Ryan, please. We didn't think it would end this way. We thought it was smart. You thought wrong. There was a beat of silence. Then Caleb's voice dropped, cold and sharp. After everything we've done for you, you'd really leave us like this? There it was. The old weapon. Guilt, polished and sharpened over decades. I closed my eyes for a second. When I spoke, my voice was calm. I'm not leaving you. I'm just not saving you. Caleb scoffed. Heartless. No, I said. Boundaried. Another long silence. I could picture them sitting there, June gripping the phone like a lifeline, Caleb pacing, cursing under his breath. And for the first time, I didn't feel torn about it. I'm sorry it turned out this way, I said. But this is your mess to clean up. Not mine. You'll regret this, Caleb muttered. Maybe, I thought. But not tonight. I hung up. Then I turned back to the piano, placed my hands on the keys, and started to play, a new melody, quiet at first, but strong enough to grow. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. The first hint came in the form of a clipped email from a mutual acquaintance, a violinist I'd collaborated with once, someone who'd always treated me kindly. Heard some strange things being said about you lately. Hope you're okay. No details. Just enough to set my stomach twisting. The second was less subtle, a post on a private musicians forum where someone hinted at how disappointing it was when successful artists abandoned the people who made them. No names. But the timing was no accident. June and Caleb were talking, painting themselves as victims, telling anyone who would listen that I had turned my back on the very people who sacrificed everything for me. They left out the parts about renting the studio, about squatting in my penthouse, about $30,000 in vandalism. Funny how short memories could be. At first, I tried to ignore it. Let them rant. Let them spin whatever version of the truth made them feel better. But when the gossip started bleeding into my work, a gallery owner hesitating to confirm a commission, a journalist canceling an interview, I realized silence wasn't going to protect me anymore. I sat down at my laptop one night, heart pounding harder than it had before my debut performance at Lincoln Center, and wrote a letter. Not a rant. Not an expose. Just facts. Plain, simple, undeniable. I sent it to a few trusted colleagues, people who mattered, people whose opinion shaped the world I lived in. I laid it all out. The studio, the move into the penthouse, the unauthorized tenants, the demands for money after reckless choices. I didn't smear them. I didn't attack. I just told the truth. And something remarkable happened. People listened. The violinist wrote back first. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Thank you for trusting me enough to share this. Then the gallery owner. Then two more colleagues, all quietly but firmly offering their support. It didn't undo the damage completely, but it shifted the air. The next surprise came from Arthur Benton. He called one afternoon, his voice strangely quiet. I owe you an apology, Ryan, he said, for doubting you, for not asking harder questions. It's done, I said. No, Arthur insisted. It's not, but it will be. And when it is, when people know the truth, you'll stand taller than ever. I hung up, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Maybe the past couldn't be erased, but it could be seen. And sometimes that was enough. The final call came on a Tuesday evening. I was on my balcony, sipping coffee that had long gone cold, watching the lights of the city pulse against the deepening sky. My phone buzzed against the metal table. I almost didn't pick up, almost let it slide into the night like all the other missed calls lately. But something about the number, Caleb's, not June's this time, made me press accept. There was a long pause before he spoke. I could hear traffic in the background, the hollow emptiness of a conversation neither of us wanted to have. We sold the studio, Caleb said finally. His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't proud. It was tired. Hollow. I leaned back in my chair. At a loss, I'm guessing. A bitter laugh. Yeah, well below what we put into it. Silence stretched between us. We thought we could handle it, he muttered. The repairs, the mortgage, the upkeep. But it was too much. It's gone now. I didn't say anything. We don't have anywhere to go, Caleb added. We're figuring it out. I let the words settle. Let them fill the space between us like smoke. For the first time, there was no blame in his voice. No manipulation. Just fear. Just sadness. We never meant to hurt you, Caleb said quietly. It just got out of hand. I closed my eyes for a second. For a moment, I almost felt the old tug. The instinct to rescue, to patch things up, to pretend none of this had ever happened. But that instinct wasn't love. It was guilt. And guilt had ruled my life long enough. I know you didn't mean to, I said. But you did. Another long breath on the other end of the line. I'm not calling for money, Caleb said finally, almost choking on the words. I just thought, you should know. Thank you, I said. Another pause. Then, barely above a whisper. I'm sorry, Ryan. I didn't say it's okay. Because it wasn't. But it was enough. I hope you find what you need, I said simply. He hung up first. I sat there for a long time after, letting the city sounds wrap around me. Distant horns. A dog barking from a rooftop. The low hum of life moving forward. I thought I would feel triumphant. Victorious. Instead, I felt something quieter. Cleaner. Release. They had made their choices. I had made mine. And for the first time, I wasn't tangled up in the wreckage. I was free. Time moved differently after that call. It didn't rush. It didn't crawl. It simply moved, like a slow tide, washing away everything I had been holding onto for too long. I spent the fall traveling. First to Vienna, then a brief stop in Barcelona, and finally a tiny village in the south of France where no one knew my name and no one cared who I was. I rented a room above a bakery and let the smell of fresh bread and salt air soak into my bones. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't answering frantic texts. I wasn't worrying about whether someone needed something from me. I wasn't trying to be good enough to earn someone else's approval. I was just living. Somewhere in the middle of that quiet, the symphony began to take shape. It wasn't the piece I thought I would write. It wasn't grand or tragic. It was simple, built out of small moments. A melody about freedom, about choosing yourself even when no one else does. I worked on it in the mornings, my window cracked open to let in the sounds of village life. The clink of coffee cups, the murmur of farmers selling their produce, the occasional bark of a scrappy street dog. Every note felt like pulling a splinter from under my skin. One morning, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. A text message. Hey, it's Mia. We used to rent the studio. Just wanted you to know. I saw the moving trucks. Looks like they really did lose it. I'm sorry. They seemed like they regretted it. But too proud to say it to you, I guess. I stared at the message for a long time. They regretted it. Maybe that should have meant something. Maybe once, it would have cracked something open in me, pulled me back into the cycle of forgiveness and guilt and obligation. But sitting there, in a little sun-warmed apartment above a bakery on the edge of nowhere, I realized it didn't change a thing. Regret doesn't rebuild what you tear down. It doesn't repaint the walls or fix the broken windows. It doesn't restore trust. It's just another ghost. And I was done living with ghosts. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled up Mia's contact info, hovered my thumb over the screen, and deleted the number. No anger. No sadness. Just closure. The symphony would be finished soon. I already knew the name I would give it. Release. I set my phone down, opened my battered leather notebook, and started sketching the next few bars. The music flowed out easily, no weight dragging behind it. For the first time in years, the past was silent. And I finally was free.